Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com.
From Tsunami Sushi in downtown Lafayette, we're out to lunch with Christian Mader, editor and publisher of The Current. It's business, Acadiana style.
Welcome to Out to Lunch. I'm Joanna Devine, filling in for Christian Mader. Acadiana is a culture obsessed with itself. That's not unique, really. Regional pride is a thing in most places wherever you go. A strong cultural identity, or more precisely, identities, can create a powerful market for artists who can tap into it. The ability to sell on social media or through e-commerce has only extended that reach, and that goes for pretty much any medium. There's the more classical approach of an artist like my guest, Herb Rowe. Herb is best known for his rich, textured, and detailed depictions of pastoral Acadiana, scenes of country Mardi Gras, po' boy shops, and boucheries. He grew up in Ohio, where he hooked up with muralist Robert Dafford and landed in Lafayette. Herb painted murals for 10 years before settling into a studio in Freetown to focus on his own work under the business moniker Chrome Sun. Since then, he's built a career tapping into the local and national obsession with Acadiana. Herb Rowe, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Acadiana's cultural landscape is a fitting subject for oil painting, but how about a chainsaw? That's one way sculptor Kelly Guidry has cut his own path in the art world. Kelly's a mixed media artist. He works in metal and wood and works in conversation with modern and traditional tokens of local life. He collects his work under the business name Modern Primitive, a brand concept he came up with while working in advertising. He left the ad business to work full-time as a sculptor. Today, he and his wife Robin work side by side to sell his and others' artwork at a gallery in Breaux Bridge called the Pink Alligator. Kelly's work is also sold online by commission and at local festivals. Kelly Guidry, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Nice to meet you too. I have a first question for you, Herb. Like a lot of artists, you're selling work these days through social media.
Yes.
Has that changed your relationship with the people who acquire your work? Does it make them feel more like customers or patrons?
I'm not real sure. I mean, the people who buy it from you in person, I guess they feel, more like patrons, but the stuff online, since I never meet them, I get an email address and a physical address, and then, box, ship, run to the post office, So I guess they just feel like almost more like anonymous customers.
That makes
So,
sense.
I mean, because I'm sure you probably ship stuff across the country too. I'm shipping stuff across the country.
Sure.
So, you, Oregon to Texas, Ohio, who knows? But
Yeah.
you're probably never going to meet them in person. So,
Well, let's come back to that. That's a good point. So, question for Kelly. You've got a brick and mortar shop, but it sounds like you do a lot of your sales off-site. So why trouble yourself with an in-store experience? Wouldn't it improve your take-home pay to just do everything off-site?
Originally, for years, I just worked out of the house and I did everything. I kind of ran, it was a one-man show. I did everything myself, and I deal with other galleries. But the thing is, you do festivals and things, but you have to have multiple streams of ways to you can't count on any one avenue for sales. To really make it, you have to have multiple streams. I do the festivals, I would do galleries, I would do online sales. And what we ended up doing was it started off as doing a little home gallery when people would come to me directly. Then we started doing the open studio tour, and that kind of blossomed into a lot of relationships with other artist friends. So we'd invite them to come, and then that ended up rolling over into doing a gallery where, yes, it's my primary way to sell, but it's my wife's business, and she represents over a dozen other artists, and she makes jewelry. And then she has a few other businesses that she runs out of it. So it's more her business than it is mine.
Way bigger than
Yeah.
just Kelly Guidry.
Sure, sure.
and like art is still like a personalized kind of thing. So having a gallery where the client can come in, look at you, or look at multiple things in person, and not the anonymity of online where everything is digitized at best a 300 by 300 little tiny image of a JPEG. It doesn't really capture what a lot of art looks like. So
even
just
the
having
best
that physical
image,
space,
you don't have that. Yeah.
I mean, even if you've got like giant PNGs uploaded, you still only see a brief glimpse of what a piece actually is. And for a lot of people, buying art is such a personalized experience. Having a brick and mortar place where they can come to is still the prime way to
I mean, that
show the work and sell it.
That makes so much sense to me. I mean, do people really buy art online?
Yeah, I mean,
Is
it's
it
not like
hard
buying
to-
widgets off of Amazon. Our widgets are slightly more involved, I think.
I don't know about you, but it's far and few between that people will buy work from me that have never seen my work in person or have never met me in person.
Right.
For you, it's probably a little different, but I find that most of those sales are my repeat customers, people that have either bought from me before or they've already seen it in person and have a more rounded understanding of what the work looks like in person versus an image online.
It kind of varies. I mean, a lot of my sales, like a personalized sales, I'm more likely to sell something if I'm there, showing it to them, explaining what's going on, because everybody wants they want a story to go along with it.
Of course, yeah.
A lot of times they're actually buying the story as much as they're buying the art.
Yeah.
So,
And the in-depth process, like I was explaining to my mom this morning about how Herb, he doesn't just take a picture and paint it. He takes multiple pictures, collages them together, creates a composition, does preliminary drawings, does the painting in itself is extremely impressive, but that's just a fraction of the
that's
work.
just the final step.
I mean, that's just a fraction
That's the little bit of the iceberg
of what
that's above
goes
the
into
water.
it. Yeah, sure.
That's exactly a question I have for you, Herb. It's like you're known for this intense level of detail in your work. And so what goes into the preparation, and how does that time and effort relate, or does it relate in any way to how you price it or sell it
A
on
lot
the
of
market?
coffee and insanity.
Yeah.
Sitting up late at night doing little tiny brushstrokes. I kind of pride myself on the layer of, the amount of detail that I put into a piece. And sometimes I try to simplify my stuff and do bigger brushstrokes, and it lasts for a month or two where I try to pare back. And then the next thing I know, I look up and I'm doing this, 4-foot tall mural of beads, like literally 6,000 beads. I counted them out like, square inch. There's this many beads in one, this extrapolate out over the canvas. Yeah, I just drew and painted in 6,000 beads. And they're not just like a dot of color. There's a highlight side and a mid-tone side and an undershadow. There's like 6 or 8 different colors on each bead. That's...
You have
obsessive.
You have this. I was gonna say you have this internal meter of what's acceptable to send out,
Right.
regardless of what you've promised as far as price or whatever. It's like, okay,
Right.
I've quoted this price. This is what this is what the market will bear.
Yeah.
But this is not enough work for me to send it out with my name on it.
Yeah.
I've got to put
I
more
always
into
end up doing
it.
way more.
Sure.
Always.
So let's talk about commissions just for a second, because you mentioned that before we started recording today, and that seemed like a really lively conversation. So my sense is that for artists, commissioned work is kind of a mixed bag. It's like
Love,
a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
It's a love hate. So what is both of your, let's start with you, Kelly. What's your take on commissions? I mean, how do you approach work like that with a client?
Well, like Herb was saying earlier, if it's something relatively turnkey, something you've done a number of times. Oh, I love your dragonfly. I want one just, similar to that one. Easy. I've got it built in my head. I know all the tools I'm going to use, all the techniques. I can run through my head in a second. I have all the materials? Yes. All the materials are in my shop. This is about how long it's going to take me. Bing, bang, boom. It's done. All I have to do is do it. Somebody asks for something that I haven't done before, I'm going to have to go and research the images for the subject matter. Certain materials, do I have that material? Do I have enough of it? I'm going to have to chase it down. There's certain techniques that have to do with, I'm used to working at a certain scale. If I'm going to work smaller or larger, I'm going to have to modify my techniques. I'm going to have to experiment. I'm not sure how long it's going to take me. I'm going to have some trial and error and frustration and just even some mental blocks of even starting the project. I'm going to put it aside because there's something else that's going to flow easier, so I'm going to keep pushing that one aside until I force myself. So that's about 3% of
And
of
also,
what
you
goes
have to be
through.
mentally
Yeah.
prepared to be, well, for me anyway, I have to be mentally prepared to be working on a piece. So a lot of times, when I'm doing my own work, I might play around with an idea in my head or do little sketches here and there for 2 or 3 or 5 years before I sit down and make the first painting about it. And then I might make 20 about that subject.
Sure, yeah.
But sometimes it takes me forever just to get in the right frame of mind to figure out how I want to do it. And in a commission piece, they come to you and they're like, okay, I need this now. And I'm like, I haven't had time to think about that.
If
Sometimes I have to put it off for a few weeks or a few months just so I could work it around in my head to figure out where it's coming from and what it's going to be. Even though they kind of have already told me what they want.
Something's not clicking with you. Something's not. And I always say, if
I try to force it a lot of times,
it
looks
forced.
like it. Yeah,
if
exactly.
I force it, it will look forced. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
but I mean, I'm also from the school where, because the way we painted murals, all those years, the muse, it doesn't matter if she shows up or not. You still got to go to work that day, and you got to work 10 hours painting all day.
Sure.
I mean, it's all laid out there. So the best way to get the muse to come there is you'd already be working, and then when she shows up, you can just keep going with the flow, So, but with commission stuff, it's just, sometimes I really do just have to delay it until the muse shows up, because it's going to look like I forced it, and it's not going to be something I'm satisfied with. Yeah.
And you'll be like, oh yeah,
but if
oh
I'm
yeah,
getting
I
the work
know.
done,
Yeah.
Like that commission piece I have sitting on my easel right now. It's a big portrait and beautiful landscape in the background, and I've got the entire thing laid out, and I've got it all painted in with my dead color layer. And all I have to do now is just sit and start getting the likenesses right and do, some nice and anatomical work on these two figures, and then blending that background out and everything. Once it hits, I'll do it in like a week.
It'll move fast.
But it's been sitting there for, I haven't touched it in 2 weeks now,
Sure.
because I'm just sitting there looking at it every day while I'm working on two other things, going, how am I going to do this?
I operate on a very disjointed timeline. Yeah. And everything to me is this weird chess game, whereas, I can't paint this until I sand it, but I can't sand it today because it's humid and it's raining. It's not a good day for that. But my little girl's at school right now, so this is a good time for me to run the chainsaw or to do the welding. I need this painting done, but that's really something I could do on a day where I'm not feeling very energetic. I feel pretty good today. Let me do this heavy work today, or I have to go run these errands. So while I'm in Lafayette, let me just take this day and go buy all these other supplies that I've been putting off for 2 weeks because I didn't want to take the time to go do the run. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you do too, but that's why I try to keep like 3 to 7 things going on simultaneously in the studio. So it doesn't matter what I feel like that
Closer
day.
to 100.
There's probably going to be something I can sit and work on, that, if I'm not feeling it, I work on this and then, work on that. While stuff is drying or while something's percolating or while I've only got 2 hours to go do something because I got something else to do.
Paint and glue is always drying somewhere.
Yeah. I was
You're waiting for the next cycle of something else.
Found my saying repeatedly over the last year. I wish I knew how many hours of my life I'd spent sitting watching paint dry.
Yeah.
Because it is a lot. It's got to be thousands of hours just sitting there waiting for it to dry so I could do the next thing, especially because of the way I do layered oil glazes. You can't do that next glaze of color until the first one's dry. And then, that one's got to be dry before you do the next one. I built up multiple glazes. So, it's literally thousands of hours.
And when you push it, then you screw it up.
Yeah.
Then you got to start over again. So I've done that where I've got something gluing, and it's like, okay, I think it's dry enough. It's been like an hour and a half, and you start messing with it, and then the paint's still tacky, and then it's coming apart, and it's like, you know what? Put it aside, give it a couple days, move on to something else. Yeah, like you said, multiple projects.
Yep.
So there's the downtime associated with being an artist in addition to the uptime. I mean,
Well, sure. Well, you're working
all this
constantly,
right?
But the thing is, it's like, oh, how long did this project take? I don't know, because it was broken up into 100 3-minute segments over the course of 3 weeks, or you know.
People ask me, how long did it take you to do that? I really have no idea.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if I'm really feeling and I'm into it, it might take me literally a third as much as it would another time to make the same sized piece. I mean, but it's usually so disjointed, broken up over a week's of work that I don't know. I have a guesstimate. I know how much one particular size pretty much takes. I sell it kind of based on that, but sometimes they take forever, and I'm like, man, I just spent 100 hours on a painting that I'm going to make $500 on.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or
sure.
I'd knock that out in a day, and it's the size that I sell for considerably more.
It levels off. Sometimes you hope it does over the long haul.
It evens out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure overall, though, I'm probably leveraged into the spent way too many hours on most things, but it's
And the only alternative is to do different work, and that's not an option.
Oh, I keep trying that, pare it down, change this, do that.
Yeah.
And then, I try to, and then, next thing I know, I'll pop up one day and I'm back to doing what I kind of naturally gravitate toward, I guess. There's no really controlling
you try to
how
make
you
it
do
more,
that. Yeah.
okay, how can I make this more efficient? How can I do this where it's more profitable? And then you realize if money were the first.
If it was the prime motive in my life, I wouldn't be doing what I do anyway.
If it was the first priority, the first thing we do is do something entirely different. You're going to do completely different work. Because this is the
If it
most,
was the prime operator of my life, I
efficient
wouldn't
way
be
to do
doing
this.
this.
Is still not the most efficient way to make money. Yeah.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Joanna Devine, in for Christian Mater. I'm talking with artists Kelly Guidry and Herb Rowe. So both of you are sort of one-man businesses in a sense. I mean, a lot of your work is self-directed. I mean, all of your work is self-directed. I mean, I know there are some externalities in terms of timing for festivals and gallery shows and things like that. But, I mean, do you ever take on assistants or students? Like, how does that work? How do you work in, or do you even consider
when I do mural
mentoring?
stuff, occasionally I'll have somebody help, because it's usually just a big job, and to make it work within a time budget constraint, sometimes you have to have help. But I spent so many years working with somebody who had a lot of assistants, and I saw how much time over the years. At one point we had like 12 employees running 3 crews in 3 different states at one time, and I saw how miserable it made him, always having to run the business and be the manager instead of sitting down to work. And over the years he just got to be a grumpier and grumpier old man, and I was like, man, I'm going to be just like that if I don't go do my thing and pare it down. And then, after I quit working for him, I really thought about, do I need assistance? Do I want to keep doing that line of work that I was doing with the murals? And I was like, I don't really want to. And I don't want, 3 people sitting around and me to keep them busy, because that's not why I became an artist, to do that. And it sounds weird to be running a business where you don't want other people to be helping you do it, because that's the most efficient way that you make more money, and that's what a business is, right?
Exactly.
But it's not when you factor in how miserable you might be trying to do that.
And I think early on it was something that was mine, that I was proud of, and I learned how to do. And I always would say, as compared to the average artist, I'm a great businessman. Compared to the average businessman, I'm a horrible, horrible, horrible businessman. But for the, I was good enough to not ever have to go back to doing another job. I could pay my bills and get by, and that was rock star status as an artist. And the idea, and like you said, it'd be great for somebody to come along and do all the stuff you didn't want to do without you having to tell them how to do it, and without them getting in your way.
But that's really hard to do, because I was one of those guys standing around all the time going, hey, what do you want me to do next? Hey, what do you want me to do next? Hey, I can't read your mind about this piece of art, so you have to tell me. Until I got good enough and comfortable enough working with him that a lot of times I could take on making decisions that he would probably make, which made me really invaluable as an assistant to him. But after a while of doing that, it wasn't really what I wanted to be doing anymore, because even no matter what I could do like that, he was still having to spend so much time managing, and as I looked at how many problems that gave him, especially emotionally, I was like, I'm cantankerous. Like when I was a little kid, I was a cantankerous little old man when I was a kid. I don't need the added pressure of that making me, unbearable. So
well, it's a weird curve. By the time you bring somebody along, you have to get so long for them to understand the way you like things done and what you need done, to where, like you said, to where they can anticipate and do it and not get in your way. By the time you get that curve, then you've built somebody who's
qualified to go do their own
enough
stuff.
to go do their own thing.
Which is good.
So
that's
why
kind
would
of
they
how,
want to?
That's kind of how the whole history of art. For 600 years. That's basically the studio system.
That's
out of
the apprentice.
I mean, and that's what you want, but
But by the time they're useful, they're leaving.
That's what I did.
So I'm curious. I mean, we talk about sort of your career and the breadth of the length of your career and the breadth of your career. I mean, can you ever retire as an artist?
I don't think artists really think of it as, it's not like you're making widgets, punching a clock, and then one day you get to go do something else. You spent your life doing this other thing that's, I spend my life doing what I want to do. So
I always say I'm doing.
They're going to find me dead in the studio one day.
Doing what people wait until they retire to do.
Yeah.
Most people wait till they retire. Oh, I'm going to do my hobby. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to get my shop and I'm going to do this. And then you have money, but now you're physically broken. You can't do that anymore. I'm not strong enough, or I'm ailing or whatever. It's I
spent my life. I worked really hard to have this life, to be able to do this stuff. Why would I quit, retire, go to do what? Like a musician ever retires, or anything like that. Anything in the arts. You don't do it to have a career that you retire from.
You just do it
because
slower.
that's what you do.
You just do it a little slower,
Yeah.
maybe a little smaller.
So I have to ask you, I mean, you've both adapted to social media, you've adapted to selling on the internet to some degree, even though it sounds like you're more at home or comfortable selling in your own space, in your own gallery space. So, I mean, what do you think about like the next level of NFTs or artificial
I hate 'em.
intelligence?
You're not buying art. You're
think.
buying a contract. You're not buying art. You might not even be buying the art that you think you're buying, because it might be somebody else's art that was stolen that somebody attached the JPEG of to this blockchain contract, and then you're buying that. And then even if you are buying what you think you're buying a JPEG, a contract for a JPEG that anybody can change the link to at any time. So you might not even actually own it.
You're buying the idea of an idea of
like
an idea. Yeah,
every time anybody asks me, it's tulips. You're buying tulips. And do you understand the reference?
Yes.
Okay. It's a boom
For our
and bust
listeners,
thing.
explain the reference. Yeah.
Back in it's the Dutch, the first big bubble. It was a speculation on tulip bulbs, and people just pumped up the prices of these things. These, almost ephemeral, basically worthless, except bulbs that produced a pretty flower. And they got up to as much that a single bulb could cost more than a mansion. And then everybody popped their heads up one day and said, oh no, these things are worthless, aren't they? And the wealth evaporated like that overnight.
Yeah.
And I get the feeling that NFTs are kind of the same thing. And I have artist friends who completely disagree with me on that.
Yeah.
Brett completely disagrees with me on that. But
I'm not knowledgeable enough about it, but it just
over
it
the
doesn't
last
make any
year when
sense
the
to-
NFT
doesn't make
thing
any
and all the
sense to me,
blockchain
yeah.
stuff started crashing, I was like,
Yeah, there you go.
tulips,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I'll be born out to be right or wrong about it, but I have the feeling that it's just they're tulips. And there might be some useful thing that evolves out of them right now, but right now it's so intrinsically tied up with con artists and people doing stuff on the internet where they're taking people's life savings and then it disappears into Bitcoin and then gone.
Yeah.
I think there's too much of associated with it. We might have to die down before something really useful comes out of the technology, but I don't know.
I have kind of a question on the flip side, which is more about the human connection, to you as artists.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel like doing shows like this and, going out to festivals and having people in a gallery space like you, Kelly, I mean, how important is that to your business model? I mean, how important is that human connection to what you do?
Oh, I think it's absolutely very important. Like I said, look, Herb and I both, a lot of our work is about documenting the culture. It is about representing the culture, and I consider it the one. I'm really a bad Cajun. I don't fish. I don't hunt. I don't cook. I don't.
Bad
but
Cajun.
I'm a bad Cajun. But that's my contribution. That's what I could do. I can help represent the culture and do things. And oftentimes, a lot of my customers, especially my repeat customers, are people that either live in Georgia or Houston or oil field business. They've gone, but they're taking a piece of that culture with them. And sometimes they come back. But it ties them. It's one thing to be here and to be proud. That's wonderful too. But for some people, that's all they have is the little piece of
home,
whatever artwork they have or things that they have that remind them of home, that keep them connected to their
So
to
much
their
of
culture.
making art and selling art is, like we were talking about a while ago, about the story too. I mean, it's for me, it's kind of like the difference between live music and a recording. Like, you'll listen to the recording, but you have an emotional experience when you're at a live show. And in a way, meeting an artist at a gallery, at a show, looking at the work with them, letting them talk to you about it. I mean, it's closer to that transcendental experience of a show as opposed to, like just buying the record and listening to it in your car or whatever. I mean, there's this personalized experience with, meeting them. People like that story. They want to hear your story. They want to hear your thoughts on it. They want to confirm what they think they know when they look at the piece.
Sure.
When they ask you, what does it mean? They're asking you to maybe confirm but they're afraid to voice themselves.
What did you put into it? Yeah, sometimes somebody will walk up and they'll tell me what my piece means.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well then it's a mirror. If that's what it means to you,
Right,
if that's
yeah.
how you connect with it, then I'm not going to correct you.
Right.
But if you ask me what my intention was
Right.
when I put it in, I
And
enjoy
I usually
telling
try
that
to give
story.
the vaguest,
Yeah.
thing possible, because I really want them to have like a bit of a conversation with the piece. I want them to think about it and create something out of it, you know. If I have to explain too much about it, then I probably didn't do a good enough job doing the piece. I don't, you know, so I tried it, but with some of my pieces, they keep on, what, no, explain more, what does it mean? Look at it, tell me what it means.
So I imagine both of you are artists that sort of known for a specific style. I mean, you're known for subject matter, you're known for a way of painting, you're known for, you know, this sort of like quirky look at, you know, oversized look at
Sure.
our insects and life in Louisiana. I mean, is there external pressure to just create what sells, what's popular, what that style is? I mean, do you
Bread
get,
and butter.
Yep.
Pays the bills.
And how do you balance that?
You when you get frustrated and like, I'm sick of making these, or I don't feel like doing this, or like might have been before we turned the mics on earlier, I was telling the story of I have a little whiteboard in my shop, and that's the people standing there holding their money ready to pay for the stuff. And I got to remind myself, okay, some bills are due, do some of these. Other than that, I'm making what I want to make. And the thing is very few things that I've made over the last 20 plus years have not sold. There's a few that lingered. Everything sells eventually. But if you need something to sell by the end of the month so that you can pay some bills, do this. If you just feel, other than that, I'll make what I want to make and it sells eventually. It'll be at the next festival, at the next show. Might be 6 months, a year, 2 years.
Yeah. I have several times in my life just started doing something completely different. So, I mean, making sales, I mean, I'll do stuff sometimes that's more geared toward just selling some stuff, but a lot of the times I'll just, if I don't feel like working on a particular, no matter how well it's selling, I'll just start doing something else, because I didn't get into it to make widgets.
Yeah,
you know, the
'cause I
same
don't
widget
want
over
to.
and over and over.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll pop out a few widgets just to
Sure.
have something in inventory for the people who really wanted it and should have bought it when I was making widgets all the time.
And that's
but,
the other factor
know.
is there's some people that can't afford your higher end
Yeah.
stuff, so there's still
Yeah.
a little bit. It's a dual track. It's yes to keep the bread and butter money coming in,
Yep.
but also the little things allows a broader range of spectrum, so that somebody who can't afford a $500,000,
No, I love to do
$2,000
little small
piece
stuff like that.
can-
So,
yeah.
like I'll do a big piece or two about a subject or a theme that I'm working on, but then I'll do like 5 or 10 small versions. Some of them are variations, some of them are where I'm working out the idea, some of them I'm just still not done with and still playing with them. So I like to, you know, and I do think of it in those terms of not everybody can afford a $6,000 or a $7,000 or $8,000. Everybody's got big enough wall to put some of my bigger pieces on.
Sure, yeah.
But everybody would like to have a little knick-knack. And while it helps me like work through some stuff, also, you know, that's another widget to sell.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a little more lightheaded,
Yeah.
lighthearted and
Yeah.
easy. You don't have to. Not a lot of heavy thinking and
Yeah.
effort. They're just
Yeah.
kind of fun.
Well, I've
and
already
cute.
done most of the thinking
Yeah.
on the big one.
Sure.
So this one is just me playing with
Exactly,
light
yeah.
or color or,
Yeah.
you know.
It can
and
be
then-
meditative to
Yeah.
kind of, and like you said, sometimes it'll be, I'm not cranking out 10 duplicates, but I'll do
Right.
10 variations.
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
get in
I
a
love doing
run.
that too. I
yeah.
love doing the little variations on a theme. And
And you'll
you know,
experiment and play
yeah.
and yeah.
Mhm. And sometimes the stuff you're doing on the little ones will spark how to do the bigger one better for the next time.
And vice versa,
it's,
yeah.
You know, it's playing around.
What an amazing conversation. I feel like we could chat all day. Herb, Kelly, art is a tough business, and y'all have clearly found a way to make it work. So thank you so much for coming on Out to Lunch today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
My guests on Out to Lunch Acadiana today have been artists Herb Rowe and Kelly Guidry. We edited this conversation to fit into our time slot here on KRVS. You can hear our unedited conversation and find out more about Kelly and Herb by listening to the Out to Lunch Acadiana podcast. You can find and subscribe on your podcast app and on our website, itsacadiana.com. If you want to know what we all look like, you can find photos from this show on itsacadiana.com and on our Out to Lunch Acadiana social media. These photos were taken by Astor Morgan. You can find more of Astor's photos at astormorgan.com. Out to Lunch Acadiana is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsacadiana.com and KRVS 88.7 FM. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle. Our associate producers are Molly Richard and Chad Terrio. Our researcher is Leah Urdialis. Today's show was engineered by Dylan Babineau. I'm Joanna Devine. Christian will be back next week. To keep up with him, head to thecurrentla.com and sign up for the Currents newsletter. We'll see you next time for more business and conversation on Out to Lunch Acadiana. Bye.
Out to Lunch Acadiana was recorded live over lunch at Tsunami Sushi on Jefferson Street in downtown Lafayette. Tsunami is open Tuesday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, serving sushi, sashimi, salads, and authentic Japanese grilled dishes. Tsunami welcomes casual dining or reservations. More information at servingsushi.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Sunday Soda Fountain, nostalgic classics like ice cream sundaes, house-made sodas, and even libations on Jefferson Street in downtown Lafayette. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com. If you'd like to be part of Out to Lunch, to learn how your business or organization can become an Out to Lunch program partner, email info@inobroadcasting.com.